Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social Podcast. Today I will be talking about the Ethias Cross in Meulebeke, and with me here to do that is Twan.
Hello.
We will be discussing the men's race first, and the men's race we saw the fastest start for Thijs Aerts. He led for quite a while with Toon Aerts. Eventually we saw attacks from Quentin Haremont together with Michael Vanthourenhout. And then Hermans had a moment of weakness and Vanthourenhout attacked over the barriers, and basically we never saw him back. Vanthourenhout went on to win. In the background there was an interesting battle of a pretty big group, including Iserbyt, Hermans who had fallen back, Aerts and Sweeck. Thijs Aerts was also there for a while, but he was the first one to drop. Eventually it turned out in a sprint for the remaining podium places, and Sweeck managed to narrowly hold on over Toon Aerts. Hermans 4th and Eli Iserbyt 5th. So here, this win by Michael Vanthourenhout. Twan, do you have any comments on it?
It looked really good. It was at the start a lot more of a peloton cross than I thought it could ever have been, which was quite surprising to me. But Vanthourenhout just solid performance, and once he got rid of Hermans, the road was open for victory.
Yeah, he looked the strongest today. Do you think it's also down to the fact that he's skipping Gieten to prepare for the World Cup, whilst others are racing with Gieten, super prestige in the back of their head?
Maybe someone was holding back a little bit today, to not really show too much before the first really important cross of the year, of course, the first classification cross. But I think if you could have gotten there, you would have tried to get that victory today. You started after all, so you might as well go all in.
Yeah, definitely true, but his teammates Iserbyt especially Iserbyt and to some extent Sweeck, maybe they were thinking, well, it's a teammate, he's not racing tomorrow, let's put our eggs in the basket of Vanthourenhout today and we'll have our shot tomorrow.
Yeah, when your teammate is up the road, it's certainly easier to sit back a little bit, especially because it's just an Ethias Cross. It's a one-off. It's just about the victory on the day. So you just see how Toon Aerts and Quentin Haremont are doing around you, right? Which I guess they could have taken it a bit easier today, with that in mind.
I definitely think for Iserbyt that was the case, although we do know Iserbyt doesn't like rain. It affects his performances quite a lot. We've seen that time after time again. But you also mentioned Toon Aerts, and Toon Aerts, he skipped racing last weekend. I think Toon Aerts looked pretty good in the beginning. Okay, he had a fast start, but I saw some mistakes, not full confidence. And we saw it in Lokeren as well. When he needs to adapt to the racing, it's all a bit sketchy in the beginning, but towards the end of the race, he looked better. He made a mistake by not going into the last corner in front of Sweeck, but I think that Toon Aerts looked pretty good today overall.
Yeah, it was a really tricky one, that last corner. I think if you have the lags, you have to be in front there. You shouldn't be trying to come from behind there. It's just an extra risky sprint, especially with how wet it was. I certainly wouldn't even have launched it if I was in second position coming out of that corner.
Yeah, it's a very short run up until the finish. I think something like 70 meters only. So it's really impressive that Aerts almost still got Sweeck on the line. But I would argue that basically what we said in the preview, Toon Aerts the big favorite for tomorrow in Gieten, I think that still stands.
Yeah, certainly up there.
Well, let's run down the entire top 10 then. We had Michael Vanthourenhout winning for Paul Sousa, 4 wins out of 4 races for the Paul Sousa bingo team. First win in the men's category for someone else than Iserbyt. So Paul Sousa won 2 with Sweeck in 2nd, Aerts 3rd, Quentin Haremont 4th, Eli Iserbyt 5th, Thijs Aerts 6th, Emiel Verstringen 7th, Wietse Meeuwse 8th, Anton Ferdinand in 9th, and Tom Meeuwse rounds off the top 10. So let's talk a bit about Quentin Haremont here. What do you make of his race, Twan?
I thought he looked quite good when he was on the wheel from Vanthourenhout, but unfortunately he did get dropped in the end. It reminded me a little bit of Quentin Haremont last year when he first came back in. Like the first month, it was basically go full gas in the first lap and see how long you can hold on. It felt a bit like that again, but certainly better right after it than he would usually have last year until one of those good performances came where he was actually able to hold on to it.
Yeah, of course. I think last year in the beginning of the year it was a lot extremer than this.
Yeah,
He
sure.
could do 1 or 2 laps. Now he would be able to do half of the race. I don't know if it was really a case of blowing up or just that the others sped up during the second half of the race, because I think definitely the riders who are riding Gieten tomorrow were really thinking, okay, if we go a bit slow in the beginning, we can push forward in the second half and save a bit of energy, because it's not ideal to recover. I think it's Van der Haar, who's not racing here today, did a pretty smart move, because it's a transfer of some 380 kilometers from Meulebeke to Gieten. So perhaps even with the weather here, it really affects your performances tomorrow. So I think maybe Van der Haar did a smart job by not racing today.
Yeah, there's certainly some more typical cyclocross weather as well. And you saw it at the start, the first few laps, it would keep bunching up, and it's not really the course for it to actually happen like that. So it was quite surprising to see, and a logical explanation of that for that is indeed just the favorites just backing off a little bit every time when they couldn't get a gap.
Yeah, the rain did also influence the race in different ways. We saw that a lot of riders were making bike changes, not necessarily because their bike was full of mud, but more because they were altering their tire pressures. They were going for lower tire pressures to have more grip. And personally, I always like that, to see that the riders need to make these tactical changes themselves during the race.
Yeah, it adds an interesting element to it, because if someone gets it wrong and you're on the wrong tire pressure for like the last half an hour of the race, it's not going to work for you very well, is it?
No, I don't think so. And I think Vanthourenhout nailed it. He had, I think, only one bike change in like the last lap, so that means that he was confident with the choice he made before the race started. There are a couple of names I would like to talk about in the top 10. I would like to touch upon Thijs Aerts. He had a fast start, fell back a bit, but still 6th place is good for him. Of course, he's had troubles. He lost a part of his finger after he crashed hard last year before the Belgian championships. I think he can be happy with that 6th place. It's a big improvement compared to his 19th place in Le Grand Cyclocross in France and 11th in Bredene.
Yeah, I think this is one of those performances where you can be really happy and take a lot from it for the rest of the season. Yeah, a fast start as usual with Thijs Aerts, and he was able to hold on to it very well, and yeah, beating some of the guys that I usually don't really feel like he is beating. So great job by him.
The last name in the top 10 is Emile Verstringen, or at least last one I would like to talk about. He rode a super strong race. He's just 19 years old. For the Tormans team is what he is riding for. He was in the chasing group for quite a while. I think he can be also very happy with this result.
Yeah, he has to be happy with this one, right? And I think there's quite a few of these riders here that have to be happy with it. Like Witse Milse as well. Just very nice to get into the season and get these results in the Ethias Crosses, take some confidence from it, and get back to training, knowing that you can actually put in decent results.
Yeah, I think that should be very satisfying for these riders indeed. I mean, of course, the Ethias Cross isn't the biggest series. A couple of names were missing today, like Ron Haar, Kamp, Van der Haar. And in the women's race, we'll come to talk about that later, there were even more names missing. But still, I think for your confidence, it's at least good to get in the top 10 of, don't forget, the UCI race, so UCI points as well. I think it can be very good for these riders to just boost their morale. And for the rest, I mean, if you do bad in the Ethias Cross, you probably won't think about it too much. So I only see a win-win here.
Yeah, well, one of those people that will be hoping to forget what happened today was Philippe Ortz, having some issues in the first laps and really not quite getting the result that he would want, finishing 18th. But really nice to see him back in Belgium to race.
Yeah, he's now riding for Burgos in a very special Spanish kit. It looks great, but it didn't bring him great luck, because in the start he had an issue, his chain blocked and he needed to unclip. He almost crashed, so very impressive that he managed to save that. But well, if you need to start last in this field of, I think it was something like 50 riders, then you're not going to be happy. Well, I think we can go and talk about the women's race, Twan. Can you give us a summary of that race?
A lot of people missing today, and we would see some Belgians at the front. It was Sanne Cant for large parts battling with Alicia Frank, Marion Norbert Ribeiro getting involved as well, as the two women of Tormont, Zoe Backstedt and Marie Schreiber, having to start quite far back, but quickly making their way through the field. And Zoe Backstedt would be the main challenger for Sanne Cant for victory. Unfortunately, she couldn't quite do it, as Sanne Cant would pull away for victory. A second place for fresh world champion on the road, of course, in the women's junior category, Zoe Backstedt, and a third place for Marie Schreiber.
Yeah, of course, a lot of names not here. Basically, all the Dutch women, with the exception of Maud Kapteins, not here. I mean, the fact is, the start list isn't great, but the fact is also that we're here to discuss what happened in this race. And it's, in my opinion, a bit hard to draw a conclusion of the level here, because Cant, Backstedt and Schreiber are all riding their first races, and we don't know how Backstedt and Schreiber have developed, but last year in the races they were allowed to race, they did get some decent top 20 results, close to the top 10, so I guess a lot will depend on how they have developed, and based on their development we would be able to place this Cant win in perspective.
Yeah, and I think for Backstedt and Schreiber, the most important thing today is you're getting UCI points and you're slowly moving up the starting grid. I think Zoe Backstedt had to start on the last row. She was basically like fifth last, I think, after like 5 corners. So yeah, getting a move on really early. It's cost a lot of energy, of course, and hopefully with some extra UCI points, being able to move up a few rows quickly, then hopefully she can get an even better chance at challenging for good places in the future.
Yeah, indeed, and of course it's a very good way to start off your cyclocross season by getting a podium between the elites. Okay, sure, we just mentioned there's a lot of names not here, but again, a podium is a podium. You were here. And the names you keep behind you, I mean, Ribeiro, Arzoufi, Frank van Looy, these are names that aren't the best of the best, but so far this season we've seen them consistently being in or just outside of the top 10, which I think should give some kind of perspective, or at least an expectation for Backstedt and Schreiber where they can expect themselves to be in the following races.
Yeah, I think this would indicate like a 7th to 15th finish if everyone is there, which is certainly exciting for them, because you're actually getting involved with some of the better women in the world already.
Definitely, the only question is what kind of races will they be riding. I think Schreiber's at the start in Gieten tomorrow, Backstedt as well, but she will be starting in the junior women's category, which is still where she belongs because she's second year under 19 now, so that makes it even more impressive. However, we have to say these results aren't a surprise for us. We've been talking about Backstedt and Schreiber for almost a year now, and it's good to see that they finally get the recognition they deserve, because the results they got last year were already impressive as juniors, but just because they have a flag which isn't Belgian or Dutch, they don't get any attention for it, and now they're really put into the faces of these commentators, and they were forced to just accept the reality that these two young women are definitely big talents in the sport.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, right? If they were Dutch or Belgian, they would have gotten much more press coverage already. And Zoe Backstedt starting in the junior category in Gieten it's gonna be mayhem. I hope they don't have too harsh of a timer, because not too many women might be finishing that one with the rate that the speed that Zoe Backstedt is racing these days.
Well, there are also some other very talented junior women at the start line there, but indeed for the ones who aren't as talented or haven't been able to make steps that Zoe Backstedt has been able to make, it will be tough for them tomorrow, but nevertheless, all credit to Zoe Backstedt for putting in that performance here today. I mean, now we haven't really talked about Sanne Cant, but that's mainly because it was kind of expected that Cant should win here. I mean, last year she did struggle in races like this as well, but if Cant wants to do what she says she does, be consistently around the top 5 or just behind it, then she really needs to win this race here.
Yeah, I think it, like, the moment I see the start list, there is basically only one person that can win, and there's a few people I hope that can challenge her as long as possible, but like there isn't much to talk about as long as she wins, right? Because she's just doing what she is supposed to do. And yeah, just talking about the other people is a lot more interesting because there's more to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess we should run down the entire top 10 then. Sanne Cant taking the win here in front of Backstedt and Schreiber. Fun fact, this is the first time since 30th of December 2019 that we have 3 different nationalities on a podium of one of the 4, well, classified Ethias Cross. We count Ethias Cross as well in this case in the women's category. Ribeiro finished 4th, Arzoufi 5th, then Alicia Frank in 6th. 7th for Ellen van Looy, then we see Maud Kapteins in front of Karen Verheestraat, and Kiona Krabbe rounds off the top 10. Some names we aren't used to seeing in the top 10 here. Ribeiro is someone who by now is almost part of that. She's usually outside of the top 10. But, I mean, regardless of the starting field, I think Ribeiro made improvements compared to last week's, and I think that could be down to the weather and the type of parkour.
Yeah, this would suit her more usually. And I think the biggest indication here is that she beat Alicia Frank today, which is very good because Alicia Frank has been putting in some okay results so far this season. 6th in Bredene, 8th in Lokeren. So that is looking really good. For Aerts as well, I'm really happy to see her up there as well. Because I think she has a lot more talent than she showed last year. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely Arzoufi. I mean, she came kind of out of nowhere in that 5th place. After the beginning of the race, we didn't see her. She was outside of the top 10 at some point. But I guess she had some kind of issues, or it's her first race. Maybe she needed to get into a rhythm or something. But she rode a good recovery race, eventually beating Alicia Frank. Alicia Frank really threw away a podium here. I think she could have been able to challenge Cant, but she crashed. And although the crash didn't look that bad, I mean, crashes always affect you. And it could also be a moral knock because she went from being 2nd to falling back to like 6th or 5th, and it's just not good.
Yeah, landing in the cold water on the ground must also not be the nicest thing, so it goes from bad to worse, right? But yeah, it is just part of cyclocross.
Indeed, somebody who probably also expected more here today is Maud Kapteins. She ended 8th, and it's, in my opinion, a bit disappointing because she ended 7th in Beringen and 10th in Lokeren with a lot better start list. So I thought that if she would have a good day, she could have maybe been able to end on the podium. But I guess the days of Maud Kapteins are already really behind us.
Yeah, this year, or at least before the season, she had the surgery, which would have fixed everything that was wrong injury-wise. But unfortunately, the results aren't quite there yet from before these injuries, and it is, of course, looking increasingly unlikely that these levels will ever return.
I think we've had it then for the women's race here in Meulebeke. Let's run down some of the other results today. The first round of the Coupe de France was held in Pierrick, and the men's race was won by Loris Rouillet, who ended the dominance of Joshua Dubois in France, and Valentin Guillard ended 3rd. The women's race was won by Helene Clausel in front of Lien Burquier and Laurine Durafou. Then there was also the Toi 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 Cup in Hilinsko. The men's race was won by Marek Konwa in front of Michel Boros and Thomas Papertska. The women's race has some really hard to pronounce names, which I probably won't be able to do, but I'll give it a shot anyway. The women's race was won by Kristina Zemanova in front of Karolina Bedrinkova, and Laura Verdonschot ended 3rd. Then there was also, believe it or not, a C2 race in Norway. The men's race was won by a Belgian. Pretty strange to see a Belgian all the way in Norway. Len de Jonge won in front of Mats Turbaas Glende, and David Eriksson ended 3rd. The women's race was won by Susanne Verhoeven in front of Mi Bjorndal Ottestad, and Alma Johansson ended 3rd. Well, Twan, I think we've had it for this episode of the Cyclocross Social Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll be back tomorrow with the Super Precision in Gieten, the real start of the cyclocross season. I'm looking forward to it. It looks to be exciting. There's rain forecasted. And there's also Paris-Roubaix tomorrow, which looks pretty much like a cyclocross race, doesn't it?
Yeah, as Wout van Aert tweeted, yeah, I should have gone to Middelkerke to practice for Roubaix tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be one hell of a race through the north of France. Anyway, I'll catch you guys tomorrow when we'll talk about both the Paris-Roubaix and the Super Prestige in Gieten. Goodbye.